Thank you, Valerie.
Thanks a lot, Valerie. And whether you're in California like Valerie or in Canada, cost is still one of the major impediments to medical cannabis access, and that's why I have so much love and respect for the work that Valerie and Mike have been doing down in California to be able to provide medical cannabis at virtually no cost to patients who need it. My name is Philippe Lucas. I run the Vancouver Island Compassion Society. We're a medical cannabis nonprofit research and production and distribution facility located in Victoria, BC. And right now, while we're about to celebrate our 9th anniversary, we're currently helping about 800 people gain access to medical cannabis. In Canada, we've got a really horrendous situation with our program right now. Unlike the US, we do have a federal program, but it's completely defunct. And so whereas the US program is only supplying 6 people, well, our program is currently protecting the rights of only 2,600 people in all of Canada. It's not a better program, it's just a bigger fraud being brought upon Canadians who can benefit from this drug. Current research suggests that about 1 million Canadians are currently using medical marijuana for medical purposes, and yet our government's only protecting 2,600 people right now. It's absolutely unconscionable. And I know that the statistics are about the same here in Washington State. It's 3 to 4% of adults are currently claimed to be using cannabis for medical purposes. We need to make medical cannabis more accessible, both in terms of its supply, but also in terms of its legal protections in Canada. And that's why in 2004 we launched a charter challenge against the federal government to open up access. Right now, as a medical marijuana patient, I need a doctor's recommendation for its use. As a Hep C patient, I also need the support of a specialist. It can take me up to 8 months to see a specialist in a big city. In a small city, that Hep C specialist simply doesn't exist. So we've got not just small barriers, but unassailable obstacles blocking medical cannabis access in Canada. I'm happy to say that that right now we just finished our court case. We spent 50 days in the BC Supreme Court. We're expecting a decision in November to try and open up access and legal protections to Canadians, as well as legalize the community-based production and distribution of cannabis, which is the model of the future for medical cannabis access. In Rhode Island right now, they're about to start a non-profit production and they're trying to pass a non-profit and production and distribution bill. In Oregon right now, they're looking at non-profit production and distribution of cannabis. In New Mexico, the exact same thing. And I worked last year at this time with the state of Israel, and they're looking to do the non-profit production and distribution of medical cannabis as well. And so we're seeing the future here. I know that in Washington State, you guys have some dispensaries. They're not well protected, they're not well regulated, and that's a problem for both the dispensaries, those very people who work in the dispensaries and who face arrest each and every day, and the patients who support those dispensaries. I've written a guideline called Guidelines for the Community-Based Distribution of Medical Cannabis in Canada with the co-author Riel Kapler. It's on the Vancouver Island Compassion Society website. If you're looking to start up a dispensary, if you're looking to get your dispensary to regulate and self-regulate itself, please have a look at www.thevix.com and check out those guidelines. It's great to be here. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Philippe. Martinez.
Excuse me, I don't speak very well. I have nerve damage from a motorcycle crash many years ago. About 10 years after my crash, I was arrested in Seattle for growing marijuana in my house. And I spent 2 years, proving that marijuana has medical validity and proving that it's good for me, and trying to help establish marijuana as a common medicine. And when I went through my ordeal and the law, the Medical Use Act of 1998 was established, my physician, Rob Killian, filed it. We went through a couple of years of promotion and discussion, and we thought everything was going to be a lot better than when it passed in 1998. However, in the last 10 years, we've seen only very small progress. Even 10 years after the law was passed in 1998, and even after SB 6032 was passed in 2007 to help update and tie up some loose ends of the medical marijuana statute, still the police are a lot more than simply reluctant to enforce state law. Polls tell us that something like 83% of Washington residents support the medical use of marijuana. However, in the last 14 or 15 months, since the protocol of SB 6032 was established, not one police agency has followed the state law, which calls for the police to take samples rather than seize and destroy the evidence, the medicine. So I'm also deposed in a number of legal cases with medical patients who are facing criminal prosecution all over the state and in other states. And it's a huge fight. In fact, I'm just trying to convince the opposition that there is such a thing as medical marijuana, just trying to educate the police that there is such a law protecting medical marijuana patients. It's sort of like beating your head against a concrete wall at sometimes. In fact, just in July, I had an office in the University District where we saw patients and we did education and been producing medical marijuana ID cards for patients in this state. We had an odor problem, and a bicycle cop came into my office, and I let him in without a warrant because we're following the law. And I figured, you know, this is where you simply have to tell the officer that you're following the law, and there's no problem. And a number of officers were there on the scene, and it turned out that by far the majority wanted to just walk away from the situation, but they found about 12 ounces of medical marijuana, and they couldn't bear to leave it there. They seized my files on 500 patients and my computers and a lot of other stuff, as well as 12 ounces of cannabis. And we had a big uproar in the press, as a lot of you know, and Douglas Hyatt and Jeff Steinborn and the ACLU and a lot of other attorneys and people, including Senator Jean Paul Wells, helped to, helped me to establish our rights yet again. But it's like pulling teeth, you know. We have this law, but it's very, very, very difficult to get the police to even recognize it.
Thank you, Martin.
In fact,
we'll have to come back to you so I can give time to everybody else, but that's 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Jeremy, please, you're next. Round of applause for
Hey, I don't know if you guys can all hear me out there, but my name is Jeremy Miller. I'm the founder of the Olympian Hemp Festival. We started in 2003 with about 500 people.
Speak closer to the mic.
We started in 2003, the Olympian Hemp Festival, with about 500 people. Now we gather about 30,000 plus people, just under 5 years, right on the state capitol campus. And I'm kind of bringing it to their door as opposed to letting them kind of come to our door and kick it in and do what they like to do. We kind of are taking it to their door and letting them see that we do business. Also, I've started the Olympia Patient Resource Center in Olympia, Washington. We help educate patients. We also do massage therapy. We issue ID cards, several things that we are trying to help patients with besides just teaching them how to grow cannabis and supply cannabis. But one of the biggest things that I would love to talk about is just active citizenry. If people, patients, regular citizens of Washington State, if we were just to go out and participate in the government, get up early in the morning, sit there and actually be part of the system, we're not going to let corporations get their way. We're actually going to influence the government because we're going to be part of the government. We're going to be there telling them what we want constantly. And what I've seen is a lot of citizens think that voting is enough, and unfortunately is not enough. After the Bush elections, I'm sure that we all can see that voting isn't a very feasible way to change the system, so we need to actually get in there and be participating in the system. So that means talking to your city council, the county commissioners, whoever it may be, the governor of the state that you live in, and actually giving a voice and a face to this. And if everybody steps up, as you can imagine, there's way more of us than them. And so they would be forced to listen to what we have to say, and they would be forced to listen and change the laws the way that we want them to some degree, no matter who's in office. And that's one of the things we try and do with the Olympia Hemp Festival, is just remind people to be active citizens and to